Okay, today we're going to tie a CDC Pheasant Tail. So I went ahead and have a fulling mill nymph hook of 5085, so 2x long. You could go, if you were wanting to do more of a Frenchy style CDC, you could use a jig hook. And then here I have a 2.8 millimeter slotted tungsten bead in the vise. And we're going to get started with some Semperfli 12-aught in wood duck. I really like this thread color is really awesome, and I like the fact that it blends in well with natural pheasant tail fibers, which can help you out here at the back of the hook when you're getting everything tied in. If you don't get all the way back there when you're tying in your body, it's not going to show up as much as a fluorescent thread or even a red thread. The classic, more of a classic pattern, has a red collar on the fly. Now we just got 3 pheasant tail fibers here. We're going to tie in the back. I don't like my tail super long. That's about right. And that is maybe a little more than half a hook break on a 2x long. While I'm up at the front here, I like to kind of get this bead seated, get it rotated to where that slot is, where it needs to be. Now you can use a countersunk bead, but I find that the slotted ones work just fine on these hooks, and then I'm not having to have a whole bunch of different hooks taking up space. I've actually found that I prefer the slotted tungsten on these hooks over the countersunk. For whatever reason, I feel like I end up with more room up behind the bead when I'm whip finishing than a countersunk. And since you can get them on the hook just fine, I don't really see a reason to use a countersunk bead. So I go with a slotted tungsten. They do a little offset on the hook at that the thing. For the body of this, we're just going to use some natural pheasant tail fibers. I like to keep the body fairly thin. So I try to use as few of fibers as possible, but still be able to wrap up where I need to start the thorax. Here I'm going to use 4 fibers. I've gotten away with 3 before on this size 14 hook, but it was really close. Now we'll just make sure that we don't have a reverse taper We'll stop just for where our thorax will start. I like to kind of get one wrap. All those pheasant tail fibers are going how I want, nice and together, and then I will connect my hackle pliers, which just helps me continue with light tension and get around that hook point. That hook point is very sharp, and if you hit it with your pheasant tail fibers, it will cut them. All right, so those 4 worked out with just enough space left. Get those good and attached. Trim them out. I can counter wrap with our copper wire, UGC and small. I like to just keep it on the spool, and then I don't have as much waste. And here we'll just have close spiral turns up to our thread. Small sized wire really works good for this. I like the amount of thread wraps you can get with the small size thread wraps, wire wraps, as opposed to like a brassy size. And it helicopters off easy too. And then there, don't have any waste. Now I'm just going to use some Pearlecent tinsel for kind of a flashback wing case. Tie that in. Loose wrap. Pull that through. Make sure that's on the top. Again. Go. Try to get that stay out of the way there. Here is where I like to switch over to some Veevus. This is 10-aught in red. Just going to try to use every manufacturer's thread here. But have a little bit of everyone's, so is what it is. Now we can trim out, drop that Semperfli wood duck thread. Now we have our red thread for our collar. So now our thorax, just some Peacock Hearl. I like to stay pretty thin with my flies, so I just get a couple. Trim off the tips of those so they're nice and aligned. Pull loose wraps and pull those tips into that thorax section. Just wrap these two up. And it keeps a nice thin thorax. Goes out. Pull that wing case forward. Right there, you'd have a pretty, fairly standard pheasant tail. But what we're going to do now is get a dubbing loop twister. And we're going to go ahead and make a nice dubbing loop. Try not to pull the fly out. Once you get it like that, couple loops around that, and then secure it. Make sure you have it opening all the way. And I like to use this Swiss CDC tool. You can have that CDC already in there. Open up that loop, that tool in there. You can close that loop then. That CDC sit there. And this thing just spins forever when you spin it. That'll get those fibers nice and trapped in there. You could just spin it on the hook right now with this, but I like to come in with my hackle pliers, since I do have this hammer in the way. Trim that loop spinner out, and then I have a little bit more room. Just do a few wraps. This CDC, pulling all those fibers back each time. Then, if I can get this bobbin, try not to trap anything. Trim that out. You kind of have a big old mess there, but if you kind of stroke all of those fibers back, you can start to get a couple wraps. Everything will lay back nicely. And you can come in here and whip finish. And some of those fibers this time wasn't horrible. can be really long, but you can just bring them back and just pinch them with your fingernail, get them the length that you want. And there you have a CDC Pheasant Tail. Go ahead and like this video, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.